What if you discovered that there's a law, a single truth as old as time itself, that could rewrite every choice you've ever made? It's not a law written in books or carved in stone, but whispered in the winds that sweep through the ages, hidden in the myths, in the stories we tell ourselves to make sense of who we are. It's there, silent, waiting for you to notice. And what if I told you that by understanding this law you could change not just what you do, but what you are? Let's embark on this journey together. Take my hand, take a deep breath, and let's dive into the mystery they've silenced for centuries. Picture a flame, small, flickering in the dark. It's not just fire, it's the very idea of transformation. The ancient Greeks saw fire as a gift from Prometheus, stolen from the gods to light the way for humanity. But fire doesn't just warm, it consumes, purifies, transforms. That flame is like you, brimming with potential, yet always on the edge of either fading out or setting everything ablaze. What decides the fate of that flame? Not the wind, not the wood, but something deeper, something the wise ones of every era have tried to name. They called it many things. Dharma in India, Logos in Greece, Ma'at in Egypt, all pointing to the same truth. A law that doesn't just govern the world out there, but the universe within you. Have you ever felt something greater guiding you? Not a rigid destiny, but a current, a flow that seems to call you when you're most lost. Maybe you felt it in a moment of silence, when the world stopped, and, for a fleeting second, everything made sense. Or maybe it was in a crisis when everything fell apart, and yet something inside you whispered, "Keep going." That's the law. It's not a secret because someone hid it on purpose, but because we humans have a habit of looking outward when the answer lies within. If you're here watching this video, it's because something in you has felt that call. So, before we go further, I want to invite you to join me on this journey. If you feel there's more to uncover, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell, and let's explore this together. Because what comes next isn't just a story, it's a key. Think of a river. It flows, it winds, sometimes it overflows, but it always finds its way. In Hindu mythology, the Ganges is more than water, it's life itself, flowing from the divine to the human. But the river doesn't choose its course with a mind, it simply is. And yet every stone, every bend shapes its path. Have you ever stopped to think that your life is like that? Every choice, every mistake, every triumph is a stone in your river. But what guides the flow? What makes you choose one direction over another? Modern psychology tells us we're shaped by habits, beliefs, traumas, but what if that's only half the story? Jung, the great explorer of the psyche, believed there's a collective unconscious, a reservoir of archetypes we all share. He said that within us, there's a sage, a hero, a shadow. These archetypes are like stars guiding a sailor on the open sea. But what Jung didn't say, at least not directly, is that these archetypes aren't just stories. They're echoes of a greater law, a force pulling us towards something we don't fully understand yet. When you feel anger, love, fear, or even that unexplainable emptiness, you're touching that law. It's the rhythm behind everything. Now pause for a moment, think about this. What brought you to this exact moment? Not the video, not YouTube, but this moment in your life. Was it a choice, an accident, or something more? You don't need to answer now, just let the question linger. Like a seed planted, it'll grow. The ancient Egyptians believed in Ma'at, the cosmic order that held the universe in balance. For them, living in harmony with Ma'at was more than following rules, it was aligning the soul with the truth of the world. When the pharaoh offered Ma'at to the gods, he wasn't just performing a ritual, he was acknowledging that without this law, chaos would reign. But Ma'at wasn't something you could hold or measure. It was a feeling, a sense that everything is connected. Have you ever felt that? That certainty, even for a moment, that you're part of something bigger? Spirituality at its core isn't about dogmas or religions. It's about sensing that connection. It's about hearing what's beyond the noise of daily life. And psychology, as scientific as it seems, points to the same place. Think of Viktor Frankl, who survived the horrors of a concentration camp and discovered that the meaning of life isn't in the circumstances, but in how we choose to see them. He said that even in the worst pain, there's a purpose waiting to be found. That's the law at work, not what happens to you, but what you do with what happens. Let me tell you a story. Thousands of years ago in India, a young prince named Siddhartha left his palace in search of answers. He had everything, wealth, power, beauty, but felt an emptiness nothing could fill. He walked through forests, meditated under trees, fasted until his bones showed, and in the end, sitting under the Bodhi tree, he realized something. It wasn't a loud revelation full of lights and thunder, it was a whisper. He saw that suffering comes from our resistance to the flow of life, from our attempt to hold on to what's impermanent. He called it Dharma, the law of truth. But what he really found was the same law the Egyptians called Ma'at, the Greeks called Logos. A law that says everything is in motion, and your peace comes from moving with it. Have you ever tried to hold on to something you couldn't? A relationship that ended, a dream that didn't work out, a version of yourself that no longer exists. What happens when you let go? Sometimes it's terrifying, sometimes it's liberating, but it's always the path to something new. But what if the key to letting go, to finding that flow, isn't just about willpower? What if it's something deeper, something beyond what psychology explains or philosophy names? This is where the journey gets mysterious. Because you see, the law we're exploring isn't just about what you do or think, it's about what you are. And this is the question that's perhaps been silenced for centuries. Who are you really, when all the layers of fear, desire, and identity fall away? Picture a mirror, not the kind that reflects your face, but one that shows your soul. What would you see? It's not an easy question, I know. Maybe you'd see a mosaic of moments, laughter, tears, regrets, dreams. Maybe you'd see an emptiness, or perhaps a light you can't explain. In Norse mythology, there's the concept of Wyrd, the fabric of fate that weaves all the events of your life together. The Norse believed even the gods were subject to Wyrd. No one escapes the flow. But what's fascinating is that even within this fabric, you have the power to weave your own threads. Every choice, every thought, every breath is a thread you add. So, tell me, what kind of pattern are you creating? That's the third question I want to leave with you. No need to answer now, but hold on to it. What pattern is your life weaving? Is it one of courage, love, fear, or something you can't yet name? Let it echo, because the answer might come when you least expect it. Psychology tells us we're creatures of habit. Our brains love patterns, even the ones that hurt us. But spirituality reminds us we're more than our habits. We're the space between them, the silence between the notes of a song. And it's in that space that the law operates. Think of a moment in your life when everything seemed lost. Maybe a breakup, a failure, a loss. What made you keep going? It wasn't logic. It wasn't brute strength. It was something subtler, like a breeze pushing you without you noticing. That breeze is the law. It doesn't force you, doesn't control you, it invites you. In ancient Greece, Socrates said true wisdom is knowing you know nothing. He spent his days asking questions, poking at people's certainties until they realized their truths were fragile. But he didn't do it to humiliate, he did it to free them. Because when you realize you don't know, you make room for something greater. What if the law that changes everything is exactly that? Not an answer, but the courage to live in the question. Now, let's go deeper. At this point in our conversation, I want to invite you to consider something that might feel uncomfortable, but it's where the mystery truly starts to unfold. What if the biggest obstacle to understanding this law is you? Not the you that wakes up, works, laughs, or cries, but the you that clings to a fixed idea of who you should be. Psychology calls it the ego. Spirituality calls it illusion. But whatever you call it, it's the part of us that resists the flow, that wants to hold the river, control the flame, weave the word with rigid hands. There's a Zen story that illustrates this perfectly. A monk asked his master, "How do I find enlightenment?" The master replied, "You're already enlightened. The problem is you think you're not." The monk was confused, so the master pointed to a nearby river and said, "The river knows it's a river. It doesn't try to be the ocean, it just flows." The monk spent years meditating on this until one day, hearing the sound of the water, he laughed. He realized enlightenment wasn't something to achieve, but something to stop blocking. And here's the mystery I promised. What would happen if you stopped blocking the flow? If, for a moment, you let go of the weight of who you think you need to be. It's not about abandoning your dreams or responsibilities. It is about letting go of the need to control the how and the why. It's about trusting that the river knows where it's going. That's the law that changes everything, not because it gives you something new, but because it reminds you of what you already are. Now, you might be thinking, that sounds beautiful, but how do I do it? How do I live by this law? And that's the beauty. You don't do, you allow. Modern psychology is starting to catch up to this. Practices like mindfulness and meditation aren't about achieving something, but about creating space. Space to feel, to observe, to be. And when you create that space, the law starts to work. You begin to notice the signs. A coincidence you can't explain. A meeting that changes everything. A silence that speaks louder than any word. In Egyptian mythology, the god Thoth was the guardian of knowledge and writing, but he was also the god of the moon, of balance, of the flow between light and dark. He teaches us that truth isn't in the light or the shadow, but in the dance between them. Your life is that dance. Every moment of doubt, joy, or pain is a step, and the law is the music playing in the background, even when you don't hear it. So here's the final question. What's stopping you from hearing that music right now? It's not a question to answer with your mind, but with your heart. Maybe it's fear, maybe it's pride, or maybe it's just the noise of the world distracting you from what really matters. As we near the end of this conversation, I want to leave you with an image. Imagine you're a bird soaring over a vast ocean. You don't know where you're going, but you feel the wind beneath your wings. The ocean is endless, the sky is vast, but you're not lost, because somehow you know the wind is your guide. That's the law. It doesn't tell you the destination, but it gives you the wings to get there. And now here's the revelation. The law that changes everything isn't something you find. It's something you remember. It's the truth that's been with you since your first breath, your first heartbeat. You don't need to chase it. It's running with you, within you, through you. And when you realize that, everything changes. Not because the world out there is different, but because you see with new eyes. If this conversation stirred something in you, I invite you to share what you felt. In the comments, write one word that sums up what this video sparked in you. Maybe it's flow, truth, or something only you understand. And if you want to keep exploring this journey, hit the subscribe button, like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, because deep down we're all searching for the same thing.